2010 to 2020. He worked at Department of Industrial and System Engineering. That is the place where first I came in touch with him. His areas of expertise are basically, we should say, the knowledge domain. There are two areas of expertise. So from knowledge domain side, he did a lot of work in transportation management, logistics and supply chain management, project management, service operations management, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, performance measurement, optimization, statistical modeling, system dynamics. He has got opportunity to work for industries also while during his tenure with these institutions. So railways, SMEs, manufacturing, automotive, agricultural, healthcare, education, R&D, and infrastructure. He did his graduation from BVM SPU, Mechanical Engineering. Then from IIT Delhi, his master's he has done, and he pursued his doctoral degree from IIT Delhi in supply chain management. He is involved in consultancy assignments on behalf of his parents to L&T, DRDO, Food Corporation of India, Neyveli Lignite Corporation, Tata Steel, Tata Hitachi, SR Steel, Ordnance Factory, Lakshmi Machine Works Limited, Godrej, Qatar Chemicals. So it's a wonderful combination of academic knowledge, exposure, experience as a teaching faculty, as well as he has been serving as a consultant to various industries as his assignments. He is a great researcher because he has published quite a lot in various journals of A star and A grade of ABDC, that is Australian Business Dean Council. Some of the journals I would like to list out: International Journal of Production Economics, Transportation Research, Part E, International Journal of Production Research, Computers and Industrial Engineering, Production Planning and Control, Expert Systems with Applications, Journal of Cleaner Production, International Journal of Advanced Manufacturing Technology, Electronic Commerce Research and Applications, Resources Policy, Journal of Manufacturing Technology Management. He has a citation number of 3000, H index is 28, and SCI Scopus publications round about 75. With this background, we are indeed feeling pride in welcoming you to our FDP as a resource person for today's topic, supply chain disruption and role of logistics in pandemics. Professor Jitesh Ji would like to say a few words about the group. We have a group of varied exposure. We have people from all branches, so it's an interdisciplinary group. The program was started on 21st. It's a 5 days program under Atal Academy of AICTE. Your experience, we had wonderful experience for last two FDPs where you shared your experiences to our participant, and that's how we are once again here. With this background of group, would like to just read out today's topic, supply chain disruption and role of logistics in pandemics. So how system approach has been extremely beneficial and could have been alarming for many of us while this pandemic was faced. So linking his knowledge and industry consulting experience to this pandemic situation. So over to Professor Jitesh Thakkar for his session. So Professor Jitesh, you can please start now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it is, yes. So thank you very much, Professor Soni, and it's a privilege to interact with the audience and deliver the talk on an interesting topic, supply chain disruption and role of logistics in pandemics. I wish to thank and congratulate MNIT Bhopal for conducting various programs on the emerging topics and I think this is the second or third MDP or FDP MNIT Bhopal has conducted. And specifically, say I am very much happy that they are trying to say highlight the importance of industrial engineering and specifically the systems perspective. So we would, I welcome the participants to this session and we would try to explore some of the issues as a part of supply chain disruptions, how the logistics can help to minimize it, and definitely we come across many initiatives taken by Indian Railways, like during COVID-19, they supported seamlessly the supply of essential commodities, food, pharmaceutical products, even the manufacturing industries were supported. They have also say taken many initiatives to support the various emergencies arising during COVID, isolation coaches, running Shramik special trains, running the longest 2.5-kilometer train like Sheshnag, and still it is going on. They are doing a lot of innovations and trying to enhance the efficiency of both passenger and freight logistics. So now I cannot, previously when I was at IIT Kharagpur, the context was different. Now because I am part of railway, uh, I cannot separate myself from the various initiatives of railway, and it's interesting also because railway is very much part of our day-to-day life. It's okay and that at present because of COVID we are not using or frequently using the bus services or the train, but otherwise say train rail journey is an inevitable part of a human life. So we will discuss various initiatives and various say actions taken by the Indian Railways while discussing the role of logistics. So basically, the institute is an upcoming institute, and after gaining a considerable experience at IIT Kharagpur, I felt that why not to venture into a new initiative where specifically I have the domain fitment, typically logistics and supply chain, and I get a huge say context not only of railway because it's a transport university, India's first transport university. Rail is definitely a part of it, but we get an opportunity to explore aviation, port, marine, and road, and all sorts of say transport modes. So with this motivation, I have joined this institute, and it offers at present various programs at the undergraduate level and postgraduate level, and we are also in the process of starting PhD program. So just we would like to touch couple of issues. It's an interesting topic and there are many things to discuss, but I will try to confine myself to a couple of points that may give you a comprehensive framework on supply chain disruption, risk management, and the role of logistics. So what is supply chain disruption? We would just like to appreciate how to control supply chain disruptions, what are the ways and means, what are the implications of risk in supply chain. Today, our life, I would not say is only affected, but our normal has changed. Our life has changed. We have learned, in fact, new practices. One of them is you extensively using these online platform and many others. So COVID-19 challenges for supply chain. As I mentioned, I will talk about some of the initiatives of Indian Railways and then we will try to appreciate the implementation framework. So broadly, say if I refer the academic literature, then supply chain disruption, going through the various definitions and the various concepts, we can say that a supply chain typically is a network of people, organizations, activities that move a product from supplier to a final customer. And typically, a supply chain disruption is any sudden change, unwanted event, or crisis that may be locally or globally. For example, pandemic is a global event that negatively impacts the processes. So we may just think of supply chain as a series of interconnected parts like a chain. And typically, when you look at the complex manufacturing, it may be mobile manufacturing, automobile, or any other pharmaceutical, we may have to say see different tires and what kind of implication it has under the unwanted, undesired event, hazard, and how it disturbs the entire supply chain. So we all know, because you must have gone through some literature on supply chain, that even under the normal circumstances, we cannot avoid the phenomenon called bullwhip effect. So disruptions even under the normal conditions because of demand fluctuations, because of competition, because of changing market levers, this effect cannot be, say, eliminated. It can be minimized through appropriate coordination and various pricing, revenue management levers, but disruption in terms of bullwhip effect is inevitable. Now you just see that when a supply chain encounters any internal or external, it may be a failure of supplier, it may be a situation like pandemic, it may be flood, it may be, say, any kind of natural calamity or war, and then you have significant impact on the supply chain, and then say your entire flow of material, finance, ownership gets disturbed. So this is just a known pictorial view of supply chain, that we have the large corporation, but these large corporations, their produce is very much dependent on the suppliers of various tiers. Downstream, they have to deal with warehousing, storage, retailers, distributors, and this entire supply chain gets disturbed under any unforeseen, unwanted event. So I would just like to share the statistics that I could come across, that a typical study conducted by the Institute for Supply Management, almost 75% of the 628 businesses surveyed had experienced supply chain disruption. So means we are just trying to validate, we are aware, but just we are trying to validate through some statistics that what impact this COVID had. Definitely, as businesses, they have learned the practices, as they have explored the various channels to reach to the customers, as well as gear up their supply base. This level of impact of COVID on supply chain has gradually decreased, but still, say, in the initial phase when it was analyzed, 57% of the respondents said they were facing longer lead times for orders with the supplier in China. So when you talk about supply chain disruptions, it is necessary to appreciate that there are broadly five types of supply chain disruptions. I would just like to caution that all the supply chain disruptions cannot be treated equally, and they are not even created equally. There are many different types of supply chain disruptions. When you typically look at a kind of disruption, you have to look for two things. Number one, what is the probability and what is the severity? So many of you must be aware of FME analysis. We do the risk assessment, hazard assessment, and we try to find out the RPN, risk priority number. So we consider the probability, severity, occurrence, and then we try to decide that what is the level of this particular risk, because there could be thousands of risks operating. See, my life, your life is at stake under hundreds of the risk, but definitely we ignore many of them and we only focus on most important risk which may lead to some injury, accident, or it may be fatal. So similar way, when you talk about the supply chain, we have to look at the probability as well as the severity. So this varies depending upon your supply chain, nature of industry, volatility, and the competition. So the first one which we are facing is the pandemics like COVID-19, and the effect of global pandemic or other public health crises can have massive supply chain impacts as it affects the life of the people, regions, global companies are affected. They can upend normal operations at every stage of the production line. The second one is the natural disaster. So there are a couple of examples, just to refer one, that March 11, 2011, earthquake struck off the Pacific coast of Japan, we all know. Tsunami, which in turn led to a nuclear disaster at the Fukushima nuclear power plant, and the catastrophe affected many businesses and global economy temporarily, shuttering those that reportedly produced 22% of the world's supply. You just imagine. So 300 millimeter silicon wafers, a necessary component in semiconductors, along with 60% of the certain necessary auto parts, the supply was significantly hampered. So there are other natural disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and this has caused many a times significant disturbances in the supply chain. The third one, specifically, I would be very much interested in is the transportation failures and delays. So we all know that in India, almost 70 to 75% transport share is with road. And today what we see, whether it's an urban traffic or traffic at the highway, there is a lot of congestion. So here at Transport Institute, we continually discuss, develop the models, try to conduct some research to see that what are the motivators for the businesses to shift their share from road to rail or water, so that not only the traffic congestion, accidents, other kind of issues be minimized, but also environmental pollution can be controlled. Because the moment it's a road transport, obviously the emission level goes high and it impacts our environment. So rail provides a quite eco-friendly transport. Similar way, your water, marine transport, and yes, there are issues how to deal with it and in what way we can incentivize the businesses so that they can shift their model share from road to rail and so on. So fine, they are looking for customization and others. So here the point is that transport failure is a very, very common phenomenon, and this causes delays. Typically during the time of COVID, we all have seen that the Delhi border, Maharashtra borders, many states, because of surge in the pandemic, because of increasing cases, the borders were seized, or the passenger or the people or the transporter, they have to produce the necessary documents, certificates, COVID negative, and then only they can be permitted. So this particular phenomena in general as well as during pandemic causes lot of disturbance to the supply chain. The fourth one is the product problems. So just without reading, because to make it little interactive, can you just think, or you can read it, what could be the issue specific to product that can cause disturbances, disruptions in the supply chain?
This is going to be my mini iMac.
Yes. So rightly, someone has said that product problems are extremely important so far the supply chain disruptions are concerned, because here I have in fact highlighted only one issue, but there are two, three issues. Number one definitely is the quality. So if the product shipped to the customer or the next stage in the supply chain is not meeting the quality criteria, then definitely either that product will be sent back, causing the delay, increasing the lead time, or it will ultimately cause some problem during the warranty period. So this is one angle of looking at. The other one, which is specific to the product, is specifications and meeting the customer requirements. So many a times when you supply the products which are not adequately addressing the customer requirements, then you will end up with significant inventory, obsolete products. There are many examples like Cisco, and they had written off huge amount of billions of millions of inventories, and there are many. So typically when your industry, when your business like garment industry, like say electronic industry, is very much sensitive to change in technology, change in fashion, then inappropriate product specification or not updating the product specification as per the customer requirement can cause a lot of disruptions to your supply chain. The fifth one is price fluctuation. So obviously, say price fluctuations at one side not only reduces the credibility of the company, but you would be end up with huge amount of inventory. Suppose you offer significant discounts or promotions policy you apply, then you may find a surge in demand followed by a deep fall in demand, and then your entire supply chain planning will get disturbed, because what your retailer would see maybe during a period of 3 months is not the reality. It is an effective effect of incentivization, and if you start producing at that rate, then you will end up with the huge inventory and the product will remain unsold. So price fluctuations can create, that is why you see Amazon everyday low pricing. Many companies, they standardize. Even just to give an example, say a couple of days back, say my registrar had sent one document for verification and comments. And as we know that in university we issue various certificates. For example, say migration, then duplicate copy of the transcript, leaving or say your graduation degree certificate, suppose it is lost. So fine, there were some 10-12 certificates and he had put some 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 300 rupees. I just asked a very simple question, that the difference in price is because of what? Is it because of number one, administrative effort, number two, quality of the paper? Yes, if you are giving some certificate on very high quality paper, then fine. So is it an administrative effort, quality of paper, or let us say third, that importance of the document, isn't it? This document is very important, so I will charge high. So what are the reasons? So I just asked that it's a multi-criteria decision-making problem and there are three attributes. So finally they realized that there is no point in keeping too many variations, too many prices. You just keep maybe 100, 200 and 500, something like that. And there are no specific reasons for which we should really differentiate. So similar logic applies in our supply chain, that if there is too much fluctuations in price or difference in pricing, then your entire supply chain planning and coordination will get disturbed. The sixth one is the cyber attacks. I have put some example and we all are aware about the cyber security and the kind of data that can be hacked. So you just see today supply chain has entirely gone from management to technology. Today's supply chain is not only a concept in management unless you have a strong technology to compete. You cannot really say make your supply chain competitive. Just like Amazon, they have a strong say data analytics and artificial intelligence based engine to explore the consumer behavior, their search pattern, ratings, preferences, and this is something where they create a competitive advantage not only in attracting the customers but also in managing their inventories. So this is something where cyber attacks, they play a great role. So if your system is hacked, if your data is manipulated, then automatically it will create huge disturbances in your supply chain planning. So just to take a pause here for 30 seconds. If you want to add, because I know in FDP majority are teachers, professors, and they do have the intrinsic desire to contribute or share or ask. So in between, once I finish with one particular say part, I just pause for 30 seconds. So please, if you want to add any example or ask anything, please.
Sir, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, sir, recently there is an incident happened like Suez Canal. So,
Yes, Suez Canal.
So in which category it will come as a disruption or?
Definitely, it was basically congestion, isn't it? It was a congestion.
Yes.
So definitely you can put it under transport failure and delays.
Okay.
Isn't it? There was a huge congestion. And in fact, I attended a lecture by one of the renowned person in that domain. So I'm not able to recollect everything, but yes, that case was about a huge congestion and say traffic management basically.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So now coming to the second part, that what are the techniques for say preparing for supply chain disruptions? We know that fine, these are the disruptions. Now, what are the approaches? What are the techniques that can be universally adapted to counter the various kinds of supply chain disruptions. So there are some universal approaches. One is create a supply chain emergency plan. So there are well designed templates and formats available, or a company can design their own format depending upon the product variety and the supply chain processes. So create supply chain emergency plan, build up inventory. That is the second approach. One side we say that try to reduce the inventory, but we should be judicious. Inventory at upstream side is not that much dangerous compared to the inventory at the downstream side, because downstream inventory has already gone through a lot of value addition, and if any unforeseen event happens in the market, then high-end inventory gets obsolete. So we typically call it as a wrap principle or the postponement principle. So we can judicially build up the inventory, not only depending upon upstream and downstream, but depending upon the risk associated with various entities and the criticality. So I hope you must be knowing the Kraljic framework. It is a very good, say, purchase portfolio framework, and that clearly indicates that depending upon the value of the component and the category of the component or the inventory, what strategy you should adopt. Conduct a supply chain vulnerability audit. So it's a dynamic process. Suppose your supplier is giving you the material in a lead time of 10 days. Now there is significant fluctuations. So are you analyzing the lead time data? Are you observing the variation in the lead time? Similar way, you have done the process capability analysis of the supplier. But now, say you are encountering frequent complaints in the quality of the components. So this is a dynamic process which helps me to create the vulnerability audit. Means in my supply chain where hundreds of the entities are involved, which entity is having higher, moderate and lower vulnerability score. So finding the weakest link in the supply chain is the logic we all know, and identifying this weakest link helps you to devise many strategies. Number one, you can undertake the actions to strengthen this link. Suppose a particular supplier, then you can work with it and maybe through technological upgradation or necessary modifications in the product, you can strengthen that link. Or you can create some parallel link because now a particular supplier has not remained that much reliable, his vulnerability index has increased, and you can switch to another supplier. So there are various ways and means. Similar way, you can think about the downstream, how to aggregate your consignments, maybe through cross-docking, and you can cater the various markets more in a customized manner rather than increasing your transport frequency and the cost. So these are some of the issues that we can consider as a part of point 3. Point 4, identify backup suppliers as I discussed. Diversify supplier base. So today we all are truly global and not necessarily indigenously, but you can even create a competition by let us say having the supplier base spreaded across the various countries, and then it will create in a way pressure even on the indigenous supplier to continue in the business. So just many a time say faculty members typically they are always interested to know what is the quality of the student. So when I joined NRTI and left IIT Kharagpur, my colleagues at IIT Kharagpur were asking that how is the quality of the student, because IIT Kharagpur being number 1 or number 2 whatever, it has the best quality students. So then I said that at NRTI, the competition is at the supply side, not the demand side. So maybe you might be wondering that what I mean to say. See, IIT teaching the best quality student and satisfying their aspirations was a challenge. So it was a demand side competition. Now here at NRTI, what they have done, virtually, they are gradually recruiting the faculty, but virtually they have created the faculty base by selecting the best faculty from all the top IITs and IIMs. It means I will have two faculty maybe from IIM Ahmedabad, two faculty from IIM Bangalore, one faculty from IIT Bombay, one faculty from IIT Kharagpur. So now the competition is at the supply side. So at IIT Kharagpur, I had to compete only within IIT Kharagpur. Now here, it is a supply side competition. So anybody joining NRTI, say they have to face this competition just like supplier, international. And then you have to gear up and see that you can achieve those quality standards. So this means these are the very much workable and well appreciated practices, that competition at the demand side, competition at the supply side. Now partner with the logistic experts. So we all know that DHL, Blue Dart, many other logistics providers, they greatly enhance your efficiency and minimizes the disruptions because of their dedicated competence in that area. So you can partner with logistics experts to minimize the level of disruption, and finally adopt risk evaluation tools. So we all know that there is a complete risk cycle. You plan, identify, analyze or evaluate, then mitigate, monitor. So there is a complete cycle of risk management, and you can adopt the various risk evaluation tools. So here just I have put couple of points as a summary that what to do when disruption occurs. So there are well proven strategies. Communicate with the customers. Do not leave your customers. For example, every month we schedule a meeting with the students at NRTI, and now we all know they have a common concern that when actually we will start the college or institute. It is very obvious because their quality of life, their learning, their age specific dynamism, all things are suffering. Their group based learning, their group based enjoyments, everything is suffering. So obviously they would inquire. So now leaving them in dark is all about creating the bad experience. So we communicate and we say these are the updates. Evaluate all critical components of the supply chain, estimate available inventory, assess buyers' behaviors, whether it is parodic or it is more or less consistent, identify logistics flexibilities and evaluate cash flow impact. So these are, as a summary, some of the strategies to deal and counter the disruptions if they occur. So just to give you a flavor, that risk arises in our day-to-day life in all the facets, and typically it is a threat that something might happen to disrupt normal activities or stop things happening as planned. मैंने जो प्लान किया है नहीं हो पा रहा है, and if I get caught in something, maybe a small accident or anything else, my system will crash. Let us say I am delivering a talk. So risk can occur because we never know exactly what will happen in the future. So we can use the base forecast and do every possible analysis. I'm just putting it in a holistic manner. But there is always uncertainty about future events. I can put, let us say, one more system, but let us say the platform on which we are delivering, that platform is not working. there is some serious problem with the platform, Zoom or whatever. It is this uncertainty that brings risk. So risk emerges out of the uncertainty, and risk can come in many different forms. So just we can appreciate that risk can appear at any point in a supply chain from initial suppliers to final customers. I just want to give you a 2 minutes exercise also to break the monotony. Think about a supply chain, pharmaceutical, maybe typically Amazon supply chain, or it may be the automobile supply chain or fashion industry. And you know that all the supply chain, some of the entities are common, sub-suppliers, sub-suppliers, then suppliers, and then manufacturer, distributor, retailer, customer. Just identify some 4 or 5 risks for a particular supply chain in your mind and share. So take 2 minutes, give a thought. Yes, anyone? Just quickly. What are the possible risks you see in the given supply chain or the supply chain industry you are thinking?
May I?
Yes, please.
Recently, I read about the biotechnology company that is a Serum Institute located in Pune.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, instead of ingredients required for making a vaccine, they are facing a shortage of packaging material.
Absolutely. Very good.
So that example come to my mind.
Yes, yes. It's a good example. Something small. See, we are not doing here a paper writing or something. Just we want to make the session live and try to interact. So good that there and the risk you just see that vaccine manufacturing, we may think that the potential risk may be associated with technology or material, chemicals required, processing, but here they faced primarily the risk at the stage of packaging. So fine. Any other
I
example?
would like to talk about another thing. I'm from Cochin. The major seafood manufacturer and exporter could not operate his, his products could not be exported for some time because non-availability of manpower. People couldn't come to the factory because of selective lockdown. So since they were not able to come there, though the material was there, shipping container was there, could not be loaded.
So here the risk has come from the human side, isn't it? So
Actually, the people are unable to come in.
non-availability of,
Um,
yes,
They are
people
unable
are
to
unable
come
to
in.
come.
No, people are unable to come in because there is no transport available for them to commute from their residence to the factory.
But because of pandemic fear, they are not coming, isn't it?
No, because of the lockdown.
Yes, because of lockdown. Yes,
Yeah.
then they are helpless. So fine. You don't have the necessary human resource available for processing because of lockdown. Good. Yes, one more we can quickly accommodate. Okay, fine. So we may think about many examples, just and this is to have a logical break. So here it's an interesting say uh, uh, analysis or interesting takeaway that what is the impact of various risk mitigation strategies, because when you think about the risk and the mitigation strategy, some mitigation strategy can have impact marginally, very high, or it may have the adverse impact, or it cannot have any impact. So just if we see, then my mitigation strategy is to add capacity. Now if I increase the capacity, disruptions may be not sure, delays will go down, procurement risk will marginally go down, capacity risk will increase, and inventory risk will go down. So I have different levers, but as you see in the last row, that one arrow upward direction means increased risk, two means greatly increased risk, decreased risk, and greatly decreased risk. So if I, let us say, add inventory, the disruption will go down, the risk specific to this will go down, delays will certainly go down. So that particular say risk will significantly increase. Procurement risk will also decrease. Capacity risk will decrease, but inventory risk, because I am adding more inventory in the supply chain, will significantly increase. So just this is a summary, and it's a good table to appreciate that we cannot say use the different levers arbitrarily. Now we should analyze that suppose I am going to add the capacity to counter some of the risk for a pharmaceutical company vis-a-vis for say garment manufacturing company vis-a-vis the food processing company, what is the risk associated and what are its implications. So as you can appreciate that the implications are totally different, even though in some case risk is reducing or risk is increasing, but the implications are different because of the nature of the product, perishability, demand, change in market expectations. So this particular say risk mitigation framework helps us to appreciate that what way I should initiate the necessary actions to combat, to mitigate the risk in my supply chain. So this is the first balancing loop, supply chain risk reward. And if you increase the cost of reserve, initially your risk covered will gradually go up, and then say risk covered, as you are moving higher, cost of reserve definitely will also go higher. So anything special about this relationship anyone can tell? What should be the strategy for a particular company? Let us say food industry, or maybe the fishing, or maybe automobile. What is the trade-off here?
So lower the inventory, lesser would be the risks.
Lower the
Inventory, lesser would be the risk of costs. I mean, the risks
so
that you
lower
need to
the
cover.
inventory, lower is the risk covered, isn't it? If I
Yes.
increase the inventory, cost of reserve, but definitely we have to measure the inventory in terms of cost. So the cost is increasing, definitely my risk. So it means nothing great. It's just, it all depends on what amount of insurance I am taking. If I am going for a very high premium plan, definitely my risk covered is also very high. Same way your inventory. Now, this is the second relationship. How do you appreciate? Here, reserve required for a given level of risk coverage and extent of pooling.
So is it
I
about
just want to set the trade-off. It's interesting. See, the first one is say in the increasing order, means if I want to cover the higher risk, I have to increase the inventory. That's it. Now there is another important relationship. If I go for the aggregation and pooling, I can serve more number of markets and the customer from the same inventory. And as I increase the aggregation, the word aggregation is very important in supply chain. As I increase the aggregation, there is likely possibility कि जो कस्टमर कोका कोला पीता है वो पेप्सी भी पीगा, वो थम्स अप भी पिएगा. So not necessary that he would only be desiring a particular one. So the substitution can take place. Aggregation can help me to cover the same amount of risk by reducing the inventory. So the key here, when you talk about the risk management in supply chain, is to use the lever of aggregation and pooling so that my inventory level does not go very high. I can control it, but simultaneously my risk coverage can increase. So it's something like group insurance. Again, I am giving you the example of the same class. The third relationship is benefits of pooling reserves. So this is one after another, and risk covered. Now, can you tell what do you interpret from this?
higher the centralization, the risk will be covered more, or aggregation.
Yes, but here I am trying to evaluate it in terms of benefits. See, here it is reserve required and extent of pooling. So if I increase the aggregation or pooling, same thing, nothing else, then reserve required would be less. कम में काम चल जाएगा, isn't it? 10 लोग अगर 10 अलग अलग उसमें रहेंगे तो कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग बहुत ज्यादा आएगी. एक में रहेंगे तो कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग, because they would use the common facilities. Means not a relevant example, but just I am trying to set the parallel, isn't it? So here reserve requirement will go down as the pooling increases. Now I am trying to put, so my sum slide even as IIT Kharagpur, because 30th June is my last day to IIT Kharagpur. I am on lien at present, so fine, that I will remove gradually. So benefits of pooling reserve increases as the risk covered also increases. Now, can you appreciate this?
Basically, you're talking about different kinds of risk being covered or
No, in general, let us not go into the types of risk. Why should I believe through this relationship that benefits of pooling as I go higher in terms of risk covered, benefits of pooling reserve increases?
see, pooling reserve basically says that you are minimizing the spread. That means you'll be getting into a situation where if you have a differentiation strategy, then you get into the risk of not meeting the customer requirements. So if you are talking about a cost leadership strategy, well, I agree. But differentiation strategies may not work. Maybe other way around. You lose your market share if you have this. So it may not be true, is my submission.
Yes. So basically, say if you increase the means either way you can interpret benefits of pooling reserve, then your risk coverage also improves. It also increases. Or if you can want to interpret that I am covering the higher risk, then my benefits of pooling reserve would also be higher through aggregation. So basically, here the common understanding is that I should be able to accommodate maximum number of markets and customers from a common inventory by pooling, and if I am able to do so, then my risk of obsolescence, transportation cost, and hence the disruption specific to transportation, all this, even the capital investment, money tied up, all these inventory related thing that can go down. So this is the third relationship we can appreciate.
So just one small question.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're talking about pooling reserves, it's a kind of I mean, having the customer, the substitute goods made available to the customer, isn't it?
Please be louder.
No, I said it's like having the customer be available with substitute goods. The substitute goods are made available to the customers when you're talking about pooling reserve.
Yes, substitute is one of the part that helps me to accommodate the customer requirements from the same aggregated inventory.
Actually, I come again the same thing because you are reducing the range. That means you are achieving a cost reduction. But it may not be applicable universally, especially the company believes in the differentiation and it has different segments which are met, the demand is met through different products. So if you reduce the spread available, some segments will not be met, you cannot assume that every segment will be going for a substitute or a minimum available thing. I mean, that is an assumption maybe for certain goods. I don't think can be generally put for all the consumer
Yes,
goods.
this is, I agree with you. This is the possibility. But let us say my customer is extremely choosy and they are very much specific to particular segment or product, then this cannot be applicable. So these are the three pillars, basically prevent, protect, and prepare to ensure the business resilience and create a supply chain that can dampen, that can absorb the shocks because of different types of disruptions. Sorry. So just to appreciate the supply chain disruption mechanism, what happens basically. So performance, there is a warning period So obviously you receive the signal. It's just like our health. We receive the signal. Subsequently, there is a delayed impact that is called the first response. So if I move the cursor here, performance goes down. That performance may be your market share, revenue, your sales, warranty claims, non-availability of products. Then this performance continues to go down when you experience the full impact of the disruption. And then, so you may compare it with the second wave, let us say third wave is expected. So the first wave was there, then it has gone down, and then again. So it is the full impact, prepare for recovery. Then the recovery starts, and then you once again try to improve upon the performance. So typically, what we intend to see that our fall. So exactly what we have done during the lockdown or this COVID period, that government has imposed different kinds of lockdowns. So basically, and this waves or these peaks in COVID, which is basically equated with the performance, can be minimized. So warning period, if you have the contingency measures, mitigation plan, and if we can start working on that, then an extreme downfall in the performance can be minimized. And you can, so there is an important word in engineering as well as in supply chain is the resilience. Nokia, there are classic examples, Nokia versus Ericsson, Toyota, all they have proven that their supply chain has incredible, say, resilience to bounce back. It's a capacity to bounce back. So many companies, they have, say, proven over a period of time that through appropriate mitigation measures, maybe like multiple supplier strategy, maybe by spreading their operations, manufacturing across the globe, or maybe using inventory of some of the important components as safety, or developing the relationship with the supply chain partners, or assessing the customer requirements proactively. These are various mechanisms. They have developed extraordinary mitigation strategies which helps them to come back, to bounce back as early as possible. So typically you can see that there is a risk identification. You can locate the risk at the supply side, operational side, and the demand side. This is the broad category. Now you have the domestic environment and global environment. Your risks are emerging from both. Second is the risk assessment and evaluation. So we use the various techniques like fuzzy analysis, multi-criteria decision making to analyze. Intuitively also you can do if the number of risks are say less in number, but otherwise to scrutinize. Because if I have 100 risks, I cannot develop mitigation for all 100. It would be an extremely costly affair and I cannot focus on all. So I can use the multi-criteria decision making or the various kinds of approaches to prioritize my risk, and then I can quantify the risk, that what is the weightage, importance, or the criticality of a particular risk. So obviously FMEA is a very useful tool where you consider the occurrence, probability, as well as the frequency, and you find out that what is the overall risk priority number. Then you have risk management strategies. So one is the avoidance. ठीक है, ज़्यादा सोचना नहीं है, कोविड होगा तो होगा. Avoidance. I am not taking necessary measures, let us say. Postponement. No, I want to say avoid, but I want to postpone it. Means I will do work from home as much as possible and I will try to postpone this. Speculation. I can speculate that going to this area or a particular shop, it may increase my probability of getting infected I'm just using the example of COVID to interpret the various. Similar way, hedging, control, share transfer, and finally you secure through insurance. In fact, security, I don't know, somebody told me that it's better you take some Corona Kavach insurance, and I just took it, and my entire family got infected, and somehow that security worked. So fine, these are the various measures to mitigate the risk or minimize the impact of the risk. Step 4, implementation of supply chain risk management strategies, and finally mitigation of the supply chain risk. So this is the standard universal framework to deal with. Now, let us try to appreciate some of the post-COVID perspective on manufacturing and supply chain. So, COVID-19 has set the entire globe into turbulence, chaos. We have multi-dimensional impact of the COVID-19 economic. You just see, we are at least lucky that we have our employment protected. Our family is receiving the regular salary for various expenses. Otherwise, a large number of people, they have lost their employment, and there is a huge economic impact. So it has even social impact also, because the moment you lose the employment, there is social implication, political, psychological significant. Even many surveys I have gone through, and all these online. It's okay, it's a cost-effective method and it provides convenience, but personally speaking, I do not like all the businesses or everything being done on the online platform. Some of the things are okay to minimize the travel, to minimize the risk, but otherwise, human interaction and conducting the activities in real mode has its own value. And in fact, simply say, you must be experiencing, I come to my office 9 o'clock, 9 to 7, just I am interacting on a screen, and there are a lot of psychological implications for children even, policy level and technology. So this COVID has created the multidimensional impact. We have given a good response in India. Definitely the vaccine development took place. Then some 3D, say XYZ company, just dummy name I am using, they have made the 3D for making ventilators. CSISR joined hands with Tata for the development of widespread use of facility of mass testing, and many more. So first lesson is that we can engage in demand-based research and produce results in shorter lead times given the contingency. See, COVID, now in this phase of my talk, I just want to highlight the competencies that we have. So this situation, typically called pandemic, has put us in a kind of pressure where we were forced to think, practice our hidden strengths and competencies. So many initiatives are taken, and the lesson 1 is that under contingency and crisis, we have the competence, technological as well as infrastructural, to meet such kind of disruptions. Definitely we are highly populated country, and we cannot compare it with France or UK, but definitely we have taken many good initiatives. So this is just sanitizers, ventilators, many other things, they are developed indigenously and in the large scale. So we are creative, and our limited resource base guides us in innovative solutions. There are many examples, typically in terms of Amul, how they have adapted to the various challenges, and the demands of the customers were met. So quickly adapted to changing needs. No more ice creams but other products. Purchase raw milk from non-members. Supply chain partners rewarded, e-commerce sales almost doubled, and likewise. Wildcraft, we all know we are using the mask. So it's a 22-year-old Bangalore-based company, outdoor clothing, footwears and bags, and they started creating very attractive, protective, say, masks. So lesson 3, we have the capability and willpower. We can take the global competition on. There are many situational advantages available with India. Just I have put it for your further reading and understanding that China facing global scrutiny since pandemic erupted in Wuhan, and Asian economic power has begun to announce incentives to move production out of China and so on under the Atmanirbhar and so on. So there are various initiatives we are aware, and it's a time to appreciate that Make in India, a lot of initiatives are taking place: smart cities, digital India, skill India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and now COVID has given a threat. COVID has given a boost to strengthen these initiatives and do more using the various schemes and policies created by the government. So these are some of the preparedness. Just to summarize, I would just like to now touch a couple of examples of Indian Railways and what they have done during the COVID-19. In fact, we all are aware, but just to make our session more relevant and interesting. So Indian Railways response to COVID-19. So typically when the entire world and all the private and government organizations were struggling, it was an Indian Railway which was not sitting still. So they undertook a lot of initiatives. They run the parcel trains, supported the logistics of Amazon and other e-businesses. Pharmaceutical companies, manufacturing industries were provided the materials timely. So employees at IR were working day and night, and they ensured the uninterrupted supply of food, healthcare, vegetables, and all other essential commodities. So just to summarize quickly, that initiative 1, uninterrupted 24/7 freight trains to ensure availability of essential commodities. I have put some statistics here to make it more, say, visible, that from March 20 to July 20 and subsequently also, more than 48.56 lakhs wagons carried supplies to keep the supply chain functional. Running of parcel special trains, as I mentioned, that transport of essential commodities was ensured, and total number of 4,465 for a window of March to July. They have run the parcel trains, and almost say 2.08 lakh tons of consignments have been moved. Shesnag boosting freight transport, it's the longest train, and they used this longest train for the freight transporting the various commodities. This is very well known that when the laborers, the shramik's workers, they wanted to go back, and there was a difficult time, because see, all are not blessed like us, and they have to do their daily, say they are dependent on their daily wages. So when their work has stopped, obviously it's a time of crisis, and they would like to go back to their villages, their rural areas, and that was the time when say Indian Railways came in picture and supported the citizens of India. So this is just the statistics, that 4,615 special Shramik special trains were run, 63.1 lakh passengers were moved. Fine, in news, always any operation you execute, there would always be some lacuna, there would always be some say coordination issues, but in general, say it was a mammoth operation and Indian Railway has successfully carried out. So there were various coordination issues. In fact, I am writing a paper on these supply chain issues that nodal officers of the railways, states and Indian Railways, these three entities broadly, it was expected that to minimize the supply chain disruption, they need to coordinate and work closely so that the coordination at the scheduling of the passenger, scheduling of the trains, practicing the safety measures, keeping the track of the passengers, all these things, and also the transporting state, source as well as the destination at both ends, the necessary information can reach timely. So this entire coordination was a classic case of supply chain coordination and minimizing the disruption. So these are some of the scheduling, planning and coordination in intrastate movement challenges which were faced by the Indian Railways. The fourth initiatives is conversion of coaches to serve as quarantine and isolation facilities. So I have just put the data. I am not going through because even this can be updated. In-house development and production of Coverall. So this can be supplied to various laboratories, healthcare sectors, PPE kits. Finally, say reaching to the conclusion and respecting the time because it's a last session, let us try to appreciate what is the implementation framework. So what we have gone through during this session, we started our discussion with what is supply chain disruption, what are the various strategies to deal with supply chain disruption. Then I brought the concept of risk, types of risk and the risk management mitigation framework. And subsequently, we talked about COVID-19 initiatives, pandemic initiatives to support the logistics in India and subsequently the role of railways in the same. So what I feel that when you talk about logistics, when you talk about the disruption like pandemic, then there are three types of supply chain preparedness we can think about. Number one, somewhat prepared, partially prepared and ill prepared. So here I don't want to go academic and just say that any company, anytime, any kind of pandemic or natural disaster come, they should be ready. It is not so, it's not possible. But they can definitely time to time assess their readiness. So this implementation framework basically explains that time to time I should be able to analyze and assess as an industry my readiness to meet with various supply chain disruptions. So if I say type 1 somewhat ready, and I have put total 4 dimensions: supplier relationship, I will say strong; geographical diversification for flexible purchase and manufacturing, high; inbuilt agility and adaptability to reconfigure the supply chain for global and local market, it is high; and implementation of risk mitigation strategy, it is implemented. So I would say this is somewhat prepared, not fully prepared, but well prepared. But you just see the type 2 and type 3 and you can read out the various dimensions in terms of supplier relationship, geographical diversification, agility and risk mitigation. Companies can evaluate time to time their score on these dimensions. Definitely supplier relationship, you have to have detailed framework, maybe comprising 10 to 15 criteria. Similar way, geographical diversification and others. And you can assess that if anything goes wrong. I'm not saying only pandemic. Pandemic is just a case. But we have seen that there could be disruption specific to cyber disruption. There could be a disruption at the supplier end, It may be because of some hazard, natural calamity, fire. So there could be any kind of disruption. The companies need to continuously evaluate. They fall into type 1, type 2, or type 3, and they can gradually increase their resilience. They can gradually improve upon their preparedness to meet with different kind of disruptions and risk arising from internal and external environment. So I think with this I would like to conclude that when your supply chain is operating undisturbed, it is easy to take it for granted. It is just like our health. मुझे तो कुछ नहीं होगा. This is the myth we all have, and it's a good belief also. Why not? It's a positivism. But we cannot ignore all the time that nothing will happen. The precautions necessary as safety measures are always essential. In times of trouble, having a good long-term plan in place is essential, and supply chain disruptions are inevitable. What is required is the continuous assessment and the preparedness. So these are some of the points that I have put which we discussed. So thank you very much for organizing this session. If you have any quick question, query, or you want to share something from your side, I welcome.
I think while introducing, I somehow skipped your present assignment. You are working with one of the most unique institutions in the country, and NRTI is National Rail and Transport Institute under the Ministry of Railway. This why I am aware of this, because I was at AICT quite some time as director in approval department, and this institution file, when I saw it, was so exciting for all of us, because I don't know then what had happened later on when I left it, but probably this is being under, I think it has got the status of Institute of National Importance, or not, Sir Abhi?
No, it has not received that status yet, but the
Okay.
things are in process and they are planning to opt for the central university.
Okay.
So for
Okay.
that,
So right now your courses,
they need to offer
Yeah.
some number of programs to have that
Okay.
central university status. So every time they are increasing the number of programs.
Okay. And I believe that the courses are approved by AICT.
Yes, yes. We have set of courses
Yeah.
approved by UGC and AICT.
Right. That's what the file was there. So we all were very thrilled in a meeting that it was being discussed. So it's a great institution. Any questions related to content? If having, then we can take quick 1 or 2 questions, or else it's already 6:25. So no, I can just quickly run through the chat box. No question pending. So right then, with a sincere thanks to Professor Jitesh ji, my fellow colleague, co-coordinator, Dr. PM Mishra is also there. Dr. Mishra, I have already conveyed your feelings. So sincere thanks to you, sir, on behalf of the institute, the whole group, and the Department of Mechanical Engineering. This is third time we are interacting on a platform of similar type. Whenever we conduct such similar program where your presence is necessary, because we are all people working in the area of industrial and system engineering, so we always seek your help. So thank you very much, sir. With
Thank
this,
you. Thank you, sir.
yeah,
Thanks
thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So thanks to all the participants now. The participants, hope you have submitted the Google form. I was just going through the Excel sheet I have generated out of Google form responses. So the responses are reducing. I mean, first day, if it was by one person, say if I say take one of the 3, then around 140 people responded. if I remove the duplication in the 3 sessions. But then it has reduced to 120 something in the today's first session. So I would request all of you to please complete, because till last days, that is third day, all that Google form is now locked. You cannot fill that. But today's Google forms are still open. Those who have not filled, I will request them to kindly fill it, so that we receive your feedback. That's very important. At the same time, that is recorded as your attendance also. So I talked this on first day. After tomorrow, if you come and plead us that my certificate is not issued, then we will not be helpful, because AICT does that. So we will simply convert your attendance in their format and transfer it to AICT. And if your attendance is not up to the mark, then for no reason you are not going to get the certificate. That's what I'm concerned. I'm not concerned about I don't say the ideal terms that we should maintain the severity or the sincerity in the program, but these are some documentaries are very important. So those who are not filling, I will put it on group also. Please do that. So thank you, Mishra ji. आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं?
नहीं sir, thanks to all the participants. Whatever Dr. Vimlesh Soni sir has conveyed, kindly fill the Google forms. Okay. So I think sir.
And tomorrow's program you have already got. It is morning session. The first session we are going to have Mircea, who is from Budapest, Romania, and he is a person of power engineering systems. And I was thinking to include at least one session that will talk of a kind of big case study on some system approach. So that's how we picked up Mircea tomorrow, first lecture. And then second lecture I'm going to handle. And one of my PhD student, who is already awarded in 2014, will come up with his work for half an hour. It would be a sharing of doctoral work, and because it has followed systems approach, so it would be a mixed session by me and my student. So that would be the second session. Third session, I have kept it open if we don't plan any formal validity. Otherwise, then we will handle that. So till tomorrow, goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thanks sir.